Hello and welcome back again to Rage Gaming and more Shadow of the Erdtree. We're continuing our series of things you might not have known about, focused on this DLC, though we are hitting the wider topics of the full game at this point. Today I've got some more stuff from community finds and surprising concepts that, I just haven't thought about until recently, and I'm interested to see how uncommon these realizations might actually be. We also have some funny bugs though, so let's just jump in and get started. So to kick us off with the first thing for today, it's to do with the new Reena Chair in the boss fight of Reena. Pretty crazy stuff in the patch of 0.13. They added a chair to the boss fight for Reena. It serves literally no purpose other than, I guess you could say she probably sits on it from time to time. Not that we'll ever see that, but it suggests that. It's very random and funny, and I made a tiny highlight of it in the last video. To my surprise, a lot of comments were talking about that chair. And a lot of people were suggesting that it's actually there for a very important mechanical purpose. Before we fully explain that, I want to talk about the fact that people have been killing bosses through fog walls in general. Check this out. Did you know that players have been able to not only fight, say, Consort Radahn without entering the room, even successfully kill him? Described with this footage by the Twitter user Candy Ashes as the most deranged way they've ever fought a boss. As you can see, they're basically spamming AoE style attacks that are exploding by the wall, and that's going through the wall over and over and over and over. The explosion radius is just able to kind of pass by the wall, which of course Radahn is pressing against, and it's hitting him. So of course with enough of that, it's going to kill him. The worst he can really do here is kind of AoE clip through on you. Say the light explosions as part of his many normal combos, they do go through, so you will be hit by that. You don't want to be too close to the wall yourself. So yes, they actually killed him this way. Pretty insane, though harder than it might look in that footage. I couldn't find the exact way or method that they did this. Could just have one player enter the room that activates the boss fight. All the other players stay outside the fog wall. The player inside loses aggro for various means, or the players outside, they can increase their aggro and then just fight him through the wall while the person inside hides. That'd be a legit normal way to do it, I suppose, but I imagine what these guys did was something a bit more buggy. So let us know if you know. But anyway, apparently pretty common knowledge looking at the comments in my last video is that you could do the same concept for rellana. And like I said, a lot of people were talking about this. So the big reason for that chair being added in 0.13, the newest patch, is to block attacks, allegedly, according to a lot of comments last time. The idea is that it's going to block the attacks from through the fog wall and prevent people actually hitting her through the wall. If you're unaware, you can indeed get to Skedu Altus easily without fighting Rellana, which allows you to go to the other side where this fog wall is, and she stood a lot closer to the back one than she is the front one. So here at the back wall, you were able to go up to it, press yourself against it, throw spells or incants in there, and it would go through and actually deal damage to her if you get it far enough. The Flame of the Fell God was obviously a good example because that travels pretty far and has AoE on the ground after. Since she is just mechanically stood there waiting the whole time, she is technically attackable in that way. But what's confusing to me and funny that so many people were convinced of that in the comments of last time is that in the video where I showed the chair, I showed how easy it is to destroy. One roll, one attack, and it's gone. So even in the scenario where, yes, it does block attacks, it would only block one before being destroyed. So as you can see in this footage, I'm doing the same thing in patch 0.13. In game, I can hear her taking damage and the ticks of fire damage on the ground as well. Eventually, it tells me, hey, you defeated her. The fog wall falls. I walk in, there's my loot and the drop. And obviously, the chair was destroyed on the first cast, the moment that I tried. So you can still pass projectiles through the fog wall, ideally from the back because you're a lot closer. You can still attack her while she can't fight back. And this is the easiest way to cheese her by far. It's not even hard to do. So why did they add the chair? I think it's purely to just suggest that she sits down sometimes. That's it. So let's move on to another topic. This one's a bit more about a buggy one. It's kind of funny to look at. You have the new catacombs and the areas that we're exploring in the DLC. Occasionally, you'll come across these spike traps in there. The idea is that as you walk near them, they activate. After a delay, it slams down, dealing some damage. In any case, you try to avoid that, but some of them have some more interesting features. Like, for example, areas where you want to let the spike trap come down, then you jump onto it, using it as a lift to get higher and get to new areas. But what I wasn't expecting was this footage, where there's in fact multiple clips of people doing this in the last 5 days, is that you can enter these ceiling spike traps. Not in a way that's intended either. Somehow by jumping into it or just walking into it at the right exact moment, people are clipping into the spike trap. The whole thing becomes see-through and then they get trapped inside of it. Sadly, they don't get to enjoy the experience for very long though, because they're standing in the spikes, they're taking the damage, so they're taking very nasty ticking damage very quickly, and people are dying very quickly, obviously. But really, this thing is just to be aware that this can apparently happen, though I do not think it's easy, and I was unable to recreate it, even though I tried quite a few many times. A lot of the time, I seem to be kind of teleported to the top, forcing me onto the top platform, almost like there's a huge range at which they protect you from being clipped by it. But obviously you can go into it at the wrong time if you're very unlucky. I did check the patch notes though, just to see if maybe this has been patched out, but there was absolutely nothing referencing it. And again, the footage that we're seeing of people getting trapped by it, those are in the last few days, so I think it's in the live patch. Just, yeah, really hard to recreate, it would seem. Alright, so for this next one, I'm jumping in live to showcase it and react to it for the first time myself. This comes from the Reddit user Warpig Sorcerer, who talked about this crazy concept that the Mesma Armer set messes with other armor sets, and in particular the Mesma chest piece will shrink the legs that you're wearing. So let's go ahead and put on Mesma's chest piece and see if they do indeed shrink. So we've got a nice zoom in, I'm about to equip them, let's put them on. Yes, yeah, they actually shrink. This surely cannot be anything to do with this chest piece. I think this must be to do with chest piece in general. Maybe the heavier sets, you know, you're meant to display that. Maybe other chest pieces are just going to do that. But I've never noticed this before, so it must have been in the game before if that's true. Let's check. So that just covers them, but I'm pretty sure it's making them shrink. You can see how other chest pieces nicely overlap with it and they don't mess with it at all. But then at the same time, other chest pieces, even originals, are literally like halving the size of those shin pads. It's so weird. I guess it just wouldn't work that they'd be so fat. I guess they'd be clipping through that. If you look at how tight that is to the legs there, as I take it off, they extend out. It's obviously a choice to prevent clipping. But that's such a weird thing. I can't believe I've never noticed that about the game. There's no way that's new in the DLC. Even new armor sets like the Rakshasa armor are doing it, as you can see. It's nothing to do with Mesma's chest piece at all, as it turns out. As you can see, there are other super thick leg pieces that will be shrunk by wearing a chest piece that's not big enough. And I guess there's two kinds of chest pieces, ones that overlap with this correctly and those that simply don't. Funnily, the samurai armor is one of the good examples of the thick legs that remain under that chest piece. So pretty random find. There's a thing you might not have known. So for our next thing, I'm standing here at a familiar location. This is the stage front inside of Ballarat, and it's right before the Divine Beast. Now, as part of that boss fight, when you first come to do this, you're not actually going to be able to progress to Inner Limb, because obviously you need to make your way all the way up here, defeat Romina, and actually unseal the city. At that point, what happens? Well, you're instantly teleported to the city. So you progress through, you activate an early grace, you get going, and that's it, you move on. But when we first come here to the Dancing Lion fight and defeat it, there's roots preventing our progress, preventing us access of the city itself. So when we burn the ceiling tree, these roots that are on the map are meant to be gone, exposing what should be an entrance to a city. So on this earlier save where I've just defeated the Dancing Lion, I haven't actually unlocked Inner Limb. It's still covered in roots, as you can see, they're crossing the city. The entrance here on the right, if you're unaware, still exists, and there's still a lift you can go up. Ahead of that lift, we have this giant door where there is this staircase that's leading up to the city. You can open that door immediately. If you're unaware, there's even an item here of relevant importance if you are using summons, a revered spirit ash to buff them up, so you very well may have missed that. And we have this huge divine bridge, or staircase rather, that's leading all the way up here. This is something I completely missed until very recently, where I was made aware of this concept that they've created a physical entrance to the city that most players are never ever going to use, and that's a shame because it's quite a nice view from up here, cool environment. There's even a ghost here that gives you a little bit of lore in reference to Miquella, but once we actually get here, the very ominous and dark roots will bar our way, preventing us actually progressing into the city via this very physical, normal entrance. So, as we come back, having actually defeated Mesmer, taken his flame, and defeated or burned the ceiling tree, the roots are removed. At that point, you're teleported to the city. And yet you can still come back here and climb this staircase and go through the newly open entrance with an elevator that leads you up. And as you can see, it nicely, smoothly connects to a grace that you'll normally get to when teleported there and progressing normally. All this is to say that they made this massive proper entrance that's grand with this huge staircase. This root-locked entrance that's very ominous when you first encounter it. Then when you burn the ceiling tree, it's removed and you can enter. And I would go as far to say that most people are never even going to see this. They're never even going to come this way because they teleport you there straight away. In hindsight, I can understand that because imagine they never even fought the dancing lion. Maybe they never even knew this entrance was here. It's obvious to someone that has, but someone that hasn't, they wouldn't ever know. So I guess as a failsafe, as a prevention of that, they made it so it forces you there. It teleports you straight there immediately. And yet this very cool, very physical entrance remains. Is probably very underused. Something I was completely unaware of or never really thought about until very recently. Last up for today's things video then, it's to do with the black flame incantations, which were incredibly important when you're someone that's doing low level runs, higher new game plus and so on, where you're dealing with massive boss health bars that you're not going to get through in a smooth way. Black flame was so good for that because it deals percent based damage to health bars. So the bigger the health bar, the more effective it's going to be. So in new game plus, black flame, super relevant, super helpful. Any challenge runner or speed runner should be aware of that. And there's various incantations that are actually very decent for the application of black flame. It wasn't until very recently that I was aware that black flame's value is significantly weaker in this DLC, and so this is kind of a PSA for this video. I was made aware of it by Scumnut, a fellow Souls creator, who posted on Twitter this: a confirmation that From Software has made the Elden Ring DLC bosses more resistant to black flame percent damage, some more than others. In the case of Scumnut, there's someone that does uncapped new game plus challenges, so where we cap out at +7, he's going to plus 1,000, so black flame is kind of required to make that possible, at least, you would think. Scumnut had a private conversation with another creator, Garden of Ice, who's a modder and data miner in general, and showcased their conversation showing the values. As shown here, Bale, Mesmer in base version or serpent version, the Mother of Fingers, and even Consort Radahn take 35% less damage from black flame percent damage, and others take 50% less. Half the damage of black flame. And this seems very intentional, as Garden of Ice puts it. It's a completely new value that they've added to the DLC specific encounters. They don't want people countering using black flame in higher levels of New Game Plus, or maybe your challenge runs. I don't know why this is necessary, but it's important to be aware of. Even in the comments of that Twitter post, there were lots of people saying this explains why black flames felt so weak. And it's something I've just never tested or checked myself until being made aware of it by this. Black flame is for some reason significantly weaker in the DLC compared to the base game. That is a pretty important thing to know. But there you have it, another episode of things you might not have known about this massive, massive game and this new DLC. As always, if you guys have anything you'd like to add to the topics today, or make a suggestion for something else to look at for the series, then let us know in the comments. We might just talk about it, and of course we'll credit it. For now though, I hope this has been useful and interesting, and until next time, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thank you for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.